going on, guys? Happy Friday. Hope everybody is kicking butt and taking names. Jumping right on, looks like IG's getting started. All right. Good night. Good evening, guys. Good evening, esteemed viewers, and welcome to tonight's Know Your Pharmacist, hosted by myself, Dr. Joaquin Acosta, CEO of PharmTruth. As we navigate the complex intersections of healthcare, technology, and wellness, I invite you to embark on this enlightening journey with us. Tonight, we dive deep into the heart of healthcare economics, unraveling the intricacies of the 340B program, a subject often shrouded in mystery, yet pivotal of our understanding of pharmaceutical dynamics. We're set to explore with expert insight and critical analysis the nuances that shape our healthcare system. Transitioning from the complexities of economics, we'll immerse ourselves in the revolutionary world of mental wellness with the NeuroCycle app. In this segment, we harness cutting-edge technology to transform our approach to managing stress, anxiety, and depression. It's not just about understanding the science, it's about practical, life-changing applications. Our Enlightenment Hour today promises to challenge and inspire. We ask a provocative question: are we too dependent on therapy? Together, we'll explore the balance between external support and cultivating inner resilience, diving into the realms of self-reliance and mental fortitude. In our Herbal Wellness Corner, sponsored by the pioneering Horse Cannabis Company, we'll celebrate cannabis advocacy and education, honoring our recent nominations for the 2024 Essie Awards, and also giving a nod and a salute to all women in cannabis on International Women's Day today. This segment is not just about cannabis, it's about breaking barriers and fostering a culture of understanding and acceptance. Our community spotlight shines on the altruistic Jars of Love initiative by Mountain View Regional Medical Center, a testament to the power of community in fostering health and compassion. We celebrate these acts of kindness that weave the fabric of our society. And finally, in our Men's Health Minute, sponsored by Vado Speedway Park, we delve into the vital role of social connection in men's health. This discussion promises to enlighten and inspire, especially on a Friday, as we uncover the often overlooked aspects of male wellness. Tonight's live stream isn't just a show, it's a symposium of ideas, a collage of insights, and a catalyst for change. So sit back, engage, and let's transform our understanding of health and wellness together. Remember, knowledge is not just power, it's the path to a healthier, happier life. Let's embark on this journey united in our quest for enlightenment and empowerment. Thank you for joining me on tonight's Know Your Pharmacist. Together, we're more than just viewers and hosts, we're partners in shaping a healthier, more informed world. So guys, let's jump on right in. Pharmacist Frontline segment, some interesting stuff today coming out of, and perhaps this came from the other day, but got to share this with you guys. Some very interesting takes from March 6th. You know, we've been trashing on the PBMs heavy, which, you know, we should be. Well, let's look at another, program here that's worth dissecting and unpacking a little bit here as we jump into our Pharmacist Frontline segment. Some pretty insightful stuff. This was trending around LinkedIn as of recent, but take a look at this: how money from sick people works, the 340B story. So take a look. January, unlike any other. If anybody knows what 340B is, we'll give you kind of some more of the spiel as we go through this. Well, let's start here. So, in case you didn't notice, their last report on New Year price changes at the end of December 2023, many insulin pens and vials took significant 75% plus price decreases. And given much of the early attention on brand drug list price increases, it bears repeating that insulins in 2024 are largely a quarter of the price they were in 2023. The grading of prices for a number of high-profile brand products in unison with others is largely unprecedented. So, the significance cannot be overstated. Arguably, no products have more exemplified the drug pricing dysfunction in the United States than insulins over the last 30 and arguably 100 years. As we are often reminded, the original insulin patent was sold for $1, even if the patent in question was essentially a patent for ground-up animal pancreas. See right there, right? United States Patent Office. So, yet, despite, U.S. patent number 146-99994, insulin's meager origins and the proliferation of diabetes diagnosis, which impacts today more than 38 million people in the US alone, thanks to congressional investigations, media reporting, and manufacturer disclosures, and a load of research, we know the real history of insulin pricing has become healthcare's sad version of where's the beef? So at 46 Brooklyn Research, they used insulin as the bloated punching bag that it deserves to be, because as list prices and net prices for insulin have diverged over the years, the full value of the growing drug maker discounts were not often making their way to the end payer. As such, we focused on insulin as an example to demonstrate how drug maker rebates are really just money from sick people. This is because drug maker rebates are little more than money collected by government programs, pharmacy benefit managers, rebate aggregators, insurers, and or plan sponsors on prescription drugs taken by sick people that are often used for purposes other than lowering the cost of medicine for that sick patient, like say to lower premiums for all people covered by the plan. As we showed in 2021, and as was expertly highlighted by USA Today at the time, the rebate system imposes great financial harm on those burdened with insulin dependency and other corresponding costs associated with diabetes management. To quote their 2021 report, what our models show is that patients are overpaying for vital prescription drugs. In the current money from sick people environment, a patient spends approximately $1,906.72 annually per year on Lantus alone. That's an insulin, long acting. Absent any premiums they have to pay, and without any consideration for diabetic supplies, they'll need to use the actual Lantus properly, right? i.e. pen needles. The health plan's total net expenses are $1,078.72. And that is to say, the health plan made around $1,000 off the sick patient's drugs. They did this by collecting banking rebates during the first 4 months of the year and then using those rebates, plus the rest of the rebates that they generate over the remainder of the year, to pay for the expenses to the pharmacy to acquire and dispense the drug. And it just so happens they have money left over at the end. Well, because of the severity of the insulin pricing problem, we always intended to revisit it to demonstrate other ways money from sick people works. So before drug pricing critics move on to the next shiny object and insulin fades into the rear view of our collective understanding of drug pricing dysfunction, as a result of these list price decreases, which also reduces the rebates they'll produce, we invite you to join us in another look at how our system's addiction to discounts distorts the marketplace and creates winners among losers among drug channel participants and end payers. In today's report, we're looking into the abyss of the 340B program, a sarlacc pit of drug pricing complexity that few dare to enter, to provide a new lens with which to understand how patients can be adversely impacted by a system built on special deals. Now, if you're already familiar with the 340B program's mechanics, something I've been a part of and ran as well in my term as a pharmacist. It's a very, very good program for the business side if you're in the right situation, right? So anyways, we're going to unpack this interesting thing here, and I'm not going to say too much about it until I'm done through with this. But the origin, right, of the 340B program. Typically, when prescription drug rebates are discussed and debated, the common tug of war lives between drug manufacturers and pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs. Because PBMs represent so many covered lives, drug makers understandably want PBMs to cover the medicines that they produce. For medicines within competitive classes, pharmacy benefit managers can use their leverage to shake down manufacturers for big rebates in exchange for coverage and preferential treatment for those medicines. While this may lower the net prices of the medicines relative to their list prices, it's often argued that the pressure for bigger rebates and other like discounts disincentivizes manufacturers from lowering list prices, and in fact, could pressure them to do the opposite. This dynamic also arguably results in perverse incentives for PBMs, who stand to bring in more money off medicines with higher list prices and higher rebates. Thus, you have controversies brewing at the federal level today, where there appears to be tailwinds behind efforts to de-link PBM conversations from the list price of medicines. As we've talked about this week, right? Mark Cuban spearheading the face of this issue, for independent pharmacy as a whole, right? This is another sector of where this is all completely mixed up, under the lipstick on a pig of a federal program, right? While legacy PBMs are getting their deserved moment in the sun for their role in distorting the marketplace and arbitrating drug maker discounts, in fairness, they aren't the only ones with their hands in the drug pricing cookie jar. As many have probably heard, under the Inflation Reduction Act, Medicare starts getting their own penalties and rebates from drug manufacturers. And while the way the IRA goes about harvesting those rebates in Medicare may differ, rebates and special deals for government programs in the US is hardly new. For those who don't know, thanks to the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1990, or OBRA 90, Medicaid programs also get their own rebates from drug manufacturers through the Medicaid Drug Rebate Program. Well, when Congress enacted the Medicaid Drug Rebate Program, they decided not to directly negotiate/set drug prices, like much of the rest of the world. Rather, they decided to obtain retrospective discounts off manufacturer set list prices. An Office of the Inspector General report in 1990 makes it clear, in our view at least, that the brand price negotiation was under consideration at the time, but ultimately other controls were selected. What OBRA 90 did in establishing the MDRP was to set a formula to determine the Medicaid rebate amounts. The formula states that Medicaid was due a manufacturer rebate on the basis of a percentage of the drug price, not the typical wholesale acquisition cost list price, but the average manufacturer price, or Medicaid would get the best of the price negotiated, and Medicaid would get additional rebates if the price of the drug rose faster than inflation. Note, the law required manufacturers to report both the AMP and the best price to the government for the purposes of calculating the Medicaid rebate. How insane is that? AMP, average manufacturer price, guys, is as high as it possibly gets, right? Those are the big list prices that have nothing to do with nothing. These numbers continue to get inflated because all those discounts that are getting cherry picked underneath are actually, being received and realized by PBMs, right? And people with their hands in the drug pricing programs, right? So, while the government, was not necessarily going to be involved in negotiating prices, they'd get the benefit of the negotiated prices from the competitive market via the best price provision, IROL, as well as the benefits of a penalty of a disincentive to not raise drug prices too much, at least not higher than the rate of other goods and services. Regardless of the details in practice, the precedent was set that Medicaid programs would be required by law to get the best price in the market. As a consequence of this formula, drug manufacturers pulled back on purchase discounts offered to select healthcare providers. They didn't want to give Medicaid the best price because they were giving to providers, right? Obviously, a local hospital has a smaller footprint than a state Medicaid program. So are we really surprised manufacturers acted in this way under the new law? The pullback on drug maker discounts to healthcare providers as a result of the MDRP best price birth calls for adjustments in Congress, right? So in 1992, Congress passed the Public Health Service Act. Contained within this act is Section 340B, which established a program whereby select healthcare groups called covered entities could purchase drugs cheaper than market rates equivalent to what Medicaid got in terms of rebates, and the creation of the 340B program and its extension of government-mandated discounts to covered entities was a stealthy way for former Senator Ted Kennedy and the balanced budget congressional Republicans in the 1990s to offer a new entitlement program at no readily discernible federal budget impact, at least on paper. By effectively stating providers, you can buy drugs at the same net prices we, the government, get for Medicaid, they did not need portion to any meaningful budgetary funding for the program, while at the same time rectifying the program in the minds of the impacted healthcare providers who got access to buy the cheap drugs again. To be clear, participants in the 340B program, covered entities and their affiliate partners, make money off the system the old-fashioned way, buying the drug cheap and selling it high. Because the 340B program is a discount on drug purchases, Congress effectively created a complex subsidy for 340B covered entities achieved through requirements imposed on drug manufacturers. Via the 340B program, covered entities are able to purchase drug inventory at a significant reduction in cost, beyond what they would otherwise negotiate in the typical commercial marketplace or best price. After securing lowest cost inventory, which itself frees up the business carrying costs, covered entities rely upon the second source of their subsidy, privately funded individuals, to generate revenue on these big discounted drug purchases. This funding, the profit between sale price and purchase price, Local 46 Brooklyn readers might be thinking of the familiar term, spread pricing, right? Enables covered entities to deliver care to the uninsured or the underinsured. As stated within an old Health Resources and Services Administration, HRSA, Hemophilia Treatment Center Manual. If the covered entities were not able to access resources freed up by the drug discounts When they apply for grants and private health insurance, their program would receive no assistance from the enactment of Section 340B, and there would be no incentive for them to be covered under entities. So for those previously unfamiliar with the mechanics of Medicaid rebates and the 340B program, hopefully this gives a better understanding of how these government entitlement programs impact the drug pricing landscape. With the goals of Medicaid and 340B essentially concentrated on the noble purpose to provide healthcare for those who otherwise would not be able to afford it, the rub becomes how the programs go about achieving those end goals, which is to draw from its financial lifeblood from the list prices of medicine and the spreads harvested from patients and plan sponsors instead of a more traditional budget means, right? It says spend more and you'll have a little bit more, to spend, and just keep spending. Wow. And regardless of the return on the investment received from Medicaid and 340B, the prevailing wisdom is that somehow the yielded rebate dollars occur with no cost to the system. Sounds pretty amazing, right? We can fund big programs like Medicaid and 340B by just hitting up drug manufacturers for discounts off their prices, and that way it doesn't end us costing us the rest of anything. And now, with Medicare getting their own rebates through the IRA, it begs a larger question. If we could just drive more discounts from drug manufacturers, what other cool stuff could we then get for free? Of course, it doesn't really work this way. In fact, it was clear from pretty much the beginning that there was a link between these government programs and the rest of the market. There is no secret money tree, no secret drug money tree that keeps replenishing itself outside of Woundsocket, that is. These discounts may not have a direct, easy to decipher cost on the front end, but somehow, some way, this money has an origin story. And much like our money from sick people tale in 2021, the drug discounts that underpin the Medicaid and 340B programs don't come without a cost either. The old saying goes, there's no such thing as free lunch. So when it comes to 340B, let's see who's getting to feast and who's picking up the tab, right? Looking at that. Our analysis, as with any good analysis, we need to start with some data and some assumptions. Fortunately for all of us, for the analysis of the flow of dollars within the 340B program is publicly sourced. So feel free to check our work and thank those who make drug pricing data more available and accessible to the public. Our first assumption is to establish what the 340B price for insulin actually is. Fortunately for us, Eli Lilly told us that 340B price experience for their drug Humalog as of September 1st, 2020, as can be shown in below in figure 2, Eli Lilly, who would know best, told us that the list price or the wholesale acquisition cost, or WAC, for insulin was $274.70 for a 10 milliliter vial. That same vial could be acquired through the 340B program for just 10 cents, an effective 100% discount, right? So, looking at the 340B supply chain using the Humalog example, right? So, via wholesaler, Lilly sells Humalog at a significantly discounted price, 10 cents per vial to 340B covered entities. Great, right? Ideally, people are having access to medicine, but, it's getting paid for somewhere. Anyways, patient gets treated at a 340B facility. Now, due to unchecked growth in the program, they are considered a 340B patient. Regardless of their insurance or financial status, patient fills their prescription at the hospital pharmacy or a 340B contract pharmacy. So as of September 1st, 2020, the patient pays the 340B price, 10 cents per vial for their prescription. The pharmacy completes the transaction, but cannot bill the patient's insurance provider or add any fees and must provide detailed claims. While a patient benefits from the savings in the 340B program system, the other side pays a copay or may even pay the list price of $274 plus the pharmacy dispensing fee, depending on their insurance program. The patient's insurance provider also pays the 340B covered entities, and many times the patient does not see any of the 340B savings, and the 340B covered entities keep the profit they get from selling the prescription. So, it changed from the previous state to help in this other situation. However, we're still unpacking this. Now, the list price of insulin as of September 2020, according to Lilly, but we still believe it holds valid through the end of 2023. There's no WAC list price changes for Humalog between September 20 and 2023, except, of course, for 76% decrease in WAC list price on 12/30/2023. Because there were no list price changes, we think it's reasonable to say this graphic is valid for the years of 2020 through 2023, the last 3 years, except for the 30th and the 31st of December of last year. Nevertheless, we'll endeavor to keep our timeline close to the date, as the purpose of the report is to be more demonstrative than quantitative. Next assumption, to establish what the average deductible amount is in the United States. We need this value because it establishes how much money a patient will have to pay directly for their healthcare products and services. In our case, the drug Humalog, before they get the benefit of the insurance copayment, thanks to the Kaiser Family Foundation in 2020, we sourced this at $1,644 annually for 2020. Next, you need to know what Humalog costs, what it costs for the insulin package to the health system, and what a patient pays to get the package after they've met their deductible. Fortunately, this was recently looked into, and they used the World Insulin Price Comparison Map and saw that the typical package cost for a vial of Humalog in the United States is $262, with a patient pay obligation of $25.72. The cost of the vial of the pens reported that there is at least in line with our own visualizations above, of the assuming Medicaid managed care organizations are reasonable proxies to the commercial market and also in line with previous disclosures on the price. A lot to unpack, right? A lot of numbers, a lot of things. Moral of the story, right? We are continuing to unpack how money from sick people works in a specific government program called 340B. This is just another end result of the, incredibly frustrating situation of our, healthcare spending here in the country, right? So that's where that is. Anyways, lastly, we need to know what kind of rebates that Humalog can generate. Lucky for us, again, this information came to light at the start of 2021 when the U.S. Senate Finance Committee's investigation into insulin costs, where it was stated Eli Lilly prepared widely divergent rebate bids within a few months for each other for Humalog and Humulin to help with commercial health plan in Puerto Rico called CIS, 22%, Cigna, 45 and 55%, depending on formulary placement, and a PBM in Puerto Rico called Abarca Health, and Optum D's Part D's business, which was 68% as well. So crunching the numbers. With those assumptions out of the way, data points gathered, they reconstructed the money for sick people model that demonstrates how the cost for insulin is generally experienced by people with diabetes over the year, as well as rebates that PBMs, rebate aggregators, and or health plans are recognizing on each prescription of Humalog. Note, we're grouping PBMs, rebate aggregators, and health plans together in our model because it's largely irrelevant which entity is taking the money. And well, they're increasingly the same organization. We construct this model again because we used a different insulin the first time around and just want to make sure the previous learnings for Lantus hold true for Humalog too. Spoiler, they do. Once the model is constructed, we can then compare the existing flow of money for Humalog relative to a 340B covered entity provider experience. And from there, we analyze the impact of shifting the after-the-fact Humalog rebates from the health insurer, PBM, or rebate aggregator to an upfront discount to a healthcare provider through the 340B program. Oh, and boy, it does change the money from sick people model in meaningful ways, except for everybody but the patient, right? So what are the results? Starting by reproducing the money from sick people experience for people getting insulin through their traditional health insurance plans without any complicating factors that 340B can add into the transaction, meaning the chart below demonstrates the typical flow of money for the purchase of Humalog under commercial insurance, as can be seen in Figure 3. Although Humalog is a different insulin from the November analysis, which used Lantus, the results are more or less the same. PBMs, insurance companies, and rebate aggregators actually make money on people getting their insulin filled thanks to drug maker rebates, deductibles, and cost sharing. As can be seen below, the health plans pay out less than they collect in rebates. Ergo, money made is reported as a negative number, right? Reflecting lower costs than what was paid out. Just the sludge fund, right? So you're looking at the deductible phase and the coverage phase for the rebate experience. Look at your overall net drug costs, $87.90. You've got the $1,054, guys, that happens throughout the entire year. The acquisition cost of the drug doesn't change for the pharmacy, right? Doesn't change for the provider. But those overall costs, you're looking at a spread of, almost $186 for the first half of the year, and you got a different spread for $62 in the next half of the year. And so basically the figures of the patients paying $1,800.02 or $1,802.52, column B, for a drug price that their plan PBM receives $747.67 profit for. It's a nice form of validation for the prior work, basically looking at, hey, for what the patient pays, $1,800, $747 there goes back into the sludge fund. in the confirmation in hand, you can look forward into how those $747 start turning into money from sick people funding other sick people, which is a bogus model because it's being coordinated by for-profit entities that have really pretty much no true actual committed interest in the healthcare of our country, which is bogus. So take it back, reviewing figure 4. This is the second one, Humalog money from sick people. Let's look at all these. So column A, acquisition cost. For a 340B covered entity, Eli Lilly has indicated that they can acquire the drug at 10 cents a vial. This is sourced from the drug manufacturer, who undoubtedly knows what the price is. At 10 cents per vial, covered entities are effectively paying 100% less than the normal cost to acquire insulin by a non-340B covered pharmacy. Column 2 is still the patient cost for the vial of insulin. Patients in plans with typical deductible are going to pay the full drug cost until their deductible is met. Thereafter, they'll pay their cost share, which is the estimated, feeling the number there, takes you down to an average cost of $63 per fill. So, health plan costs, column C. Health plans share in drug costs in the manners that they normally do, regardless of whether the healthcare provider or not is part of the 340B program, not paying while the patient is in the deductible phase and picking up their share relative to the patient's copay and co-insurance after the deductible is reached. And column D shows the 340B covered entity's revenue off the sale of this medication. And this amount is a function of both the patient's cost, column B, and the health plan's cost, column C. Charging full commercial rates to someone for something you bought for pennies, it turns out, is pretty lucrative. Who would have thought? Several states enacted legalization that says PBMs and health insurers cannot disparage 340B provider reimbursement, meaning providers of 340B medicines cannot receive lower reimbursements than other market participants. As a result, that column they feel is fairly accurate to the average customer of the 340B entity, given that most people have drug coverage since the Affordable Care Act. Now, the margin, in column E is made by the covered entity, whereas on traditional non-340B pharmacy transactions, we assume that pharmacy providers were not making any money on Humalog, even though evidence from Medicaid data suggests maybe they were even losing money with average payments of $262 per vial, right? As we talked about before, pharmacies will buy that brand name medication and literally get paid back less money than they paid for it after doing all the work to dispense it, counsel the patient, right? Do all that. Wild. So, anyways, here again, we're seeing the 340B covered entity pharmacy providers making money because they're not really paying anything immaterial to acquire the drug, which, definitely depends on those 340B covered entities and how that works. It does definitely take some time for that to build up, but, it does turn into a lucrative contract. And effectively, all contracts between manufacturers, PBM insurers preclude claims acquired at the 340B price from paying a back-end rebate. If the manufacturer is providing a front-end discount to the provider, then the PBM can't also harvest both the back-end rebate from the manufacturer on the supply chain. Who would have thought? So we assume the insurance doesn't get any money from the sick people because the covered entity has captured it first. At a federal level, duplicate discounts between Medicaid rebates and 340B discounts are statutory. You can't, bill for the same thing twice. But in private marketplace, the delta is generally a function of the contract. As a way of proof, in Figure 5, we provide a screenshot of a rebate guarantee language in the City of Mesa's Arizona contract with their PBM, which precludes rebates on 340B claims. This type of exemption language is industry standard, and if you find a PBM contract that doesn't have it, let them know, right? So looking at the whole thing, in terms of rebate guarantees, healthcare costs, it really just gets completely mixed up into a giant sludge fund, right? And so, the money from sick people goes into the next money from sick people, as basically, insurance sucks it out all the way. And there's no, real means for, quality healthcare to be provided here in terms of, a good system building, right? If you can get into the position of getting a 340B contract set up, awesome, great for you. You're going to be into some profit for a little while, but, the nature of how that money gets there, it's kind of shameful. But, people make money in whatever other ways, right? Go start an OnlyFans, whatever you think, right? But, this to me is a lot nastier, a lot slimier way right, than, anything in the entire world. But it's not to blame the entities that are participating in the 340B programs. Business, you got to do what you got to do. 340B programs gives opportunities to help underserved patients, to help, people with lower socioeconomic situations. And so there's good things about it, but, that's also why it was put there, to be a kind of a, a balance of a lipstick on a pig program where, we can just continue to make certain, segments of the healthcare industry or market happy, and thus keep drug prices absolutely list cost ridiculous, for even some things such as insulin, which costs 10 cents a vial to make, and we're paying $262 for that vial, and you've got a ridiculous amount of spread there that gets, only funded basically by the pharmacy and by the patient. Nuts, right? So from money from sick people getting spread to other sick people, as the ridiculous amounts of money still end up getting pocketed, per person, right, by the insurance or health plan, right? So you're looking at the 340B pocketing, right? The health plans, are making buku, pharmacies make decent money, the healthcare entities make good money, patients are losing money across the board, higher insurance rates, higher drug prices, all go into more of this, or, just their executives on their yachts or whatever, right? And that's, maybe a perspective for a later day, right? And pharma is just one of those industries in our country that has really, been, unfortunately, the more I find myself in it, X amount of years later, there's a lot of work to be done. There's definitely some big time issues there that are hurting our populations. And when we look at, not only, some of the other ramifications, of this, we're just, I totally get it, right? And so we're gonna move on, but we're unpacking, what I'm excited about, what I'm bullish on, is the fact that all this stuff is finally starting to come to light. We're all learning more as it all goes on, but what we are seeing is the criminal, acts of basically pharmacy benefit managers, and the way, it's really been manipulated all the way down, to the dollar. And the more that they can do to put the lipstick on a pig doesn't take the fact that your average wholesale price, your wholesale acquisition cost of the drugs still remains astronomically higher compared to any other Western country. Why? Right? We're paying inflated prices for everything. We're funding the entire world. Who would have known, right? How do we take care of our people when we're funding these kinds of things? A lot of different ways to spend that, a lot of different ways to play that. But let's jump into our next segment. Something very interesting there. We're going to continue on more Enlightenment Hour. I'm just fast forwarding to this segment of balancing therapy and self-empowerment for better mental wellness. So I'm going to be discussing here in a little bit a little blog by Dr. Caroline Leaf called "Are We Too Dependent on Therapy?" Interesting, right? So before I get into the blog, I want to show Dr. Leaf's app and her research behind it, because this is not just to by any means bully anybody who goes to therapy or anything like that. This is, gotta do what you gotta do, of course, right? But this is also just kind of the other side of the stick here that I think we got to take a look at. So anyways, the NeuroCycle app by Dr. Caroline Leaf is the first scientifically tested brain detox app. So perhaps you see apps for like the mental gym and things like that. More and more now that technology continues to increase, and we're finding ways to establish healthcare through whatever means of technology and things like that. So anyways, Dr. Leaf came out with this app called the NeuroCycle app, built to manage stress, anxiety, and depression and toxic thinking. And she used basically a 5-step program to develop the app. So I'm going to basically jump on over to some of the science behind the app. I want to show you guys a little bit of this. So she's got, a lot of studies here about pretty much all the different facets of the app, but the one I wanted to talk about today was the psychoneurobiological correlations of beta activity, which she was looking at as one of the big foundations on how can you change the actual brain waves that are happening there, right? So take a look. Chronic stress and anxiety in everyday life can lead to sympathetic hyperactivity, right? Fight or flight response. This can be observed as behavioral, chemical, and neurological changes, including increased rumination, anxiety, and depression, and chemical changes in biological markers like homocysteine. In the EEG, increased beta 13 to 30 hertz of wave activity, especially high beta greater than 20 hertz, has been long noted in anxiety and stress. However, recent research indicates that low beta waves from 13 to 20 hertz may play a role as well. The current paper presents a pilot study that assessed the NeuroCycle's efficacy as a non-pharmacological mind management therapy for people who struggle with anxiety and depression. And they assessed psychometrics, blood serum homocysteine levels, and quantitative EEGs. The efficacy of the NeuroCycle app was demonstrated by improved psychometric self-assessment over the study, and they observed positive correlations between the subject's low beta relative power and homocysteine levels. The findings validated NeuroCycle's efficacy for improving mental health as measured by behavioral, chemical, and neurological measures. Altogether, findings supporting low beta's role in stress and anxiety manifestation, given that its modulation significantly correlated with stress biomarkers in patients' blood samples and stress and anxiety self-assessments. So, looking, guys, there's talking about the interrelation between beta activity and anxiety. The past decade of EEG studies has confirmed early seminal research of a relationship between beta wave activity, overall low and high, and an umbrella of anxiety factors. Recently, Rebus et al. Provided percentage ranges at which beta activity and anxiety risk factors correlate. Measuring at T3 and T4, their qualitative EEG assessments identified levels of overall beta wave activity greater than 17% and high beta wave activity greater than 10%, with subjects' fear, panic, insecurity, phobia, and anxiety. Though high beta wave activity is typically associated with anxiety and stress issues, findings such as those from Rebus et al. Help to clarify how both low beta and high beta are related to anxiety factors, and an increased percentage of either can be correlated to increased anxiety factors. Direct modulation of beta wave amplitude via EEG-based biofeedback therapy for decreasing anxiety levels has confirmed the interrelationship of beta wave anxiety and anxiety factors. Walker in 2010 demonstrated how reductions in beta wave amplitude yielded statistically significant reductions in self-reported anxiety, indicated that beta wave activity in the brain decreased anxiety symptoms. Decreased beta wave activity in the brain decreased anxiety symptoms, and moreover, heightened beta amplitudes have been correlated with anxiety in manifestations in other mental health disorders, including PTSD, bipolar, schizophrenia, and addiction. So, what did they do? Literally, traditional holistic therapy modules for anxiety, such as yoga, meditation, and breathing techniques, also demonstrated reduced overall beta wave amplitude and reduced, improved mental state. But they started coming to how to find the therapeutic modalities for anxiety to, actually start correlating with levels. So, psychoneurobiology, words that continue to blow our absolute mind, right? Well, the World Health Organization in 2022 reported that there's a 13% increase in mental health conditions and substance abuse disorders since 2019. However, despite the increase, current pharmacological treatments don't offer lasting treatment or resolutions for these disorders. And the aforementioned lack of standardization across the field regarding the relationship between neural frequencies and mental health conditions has necessitated more research. Specifically, Newson and Diagarajan called for researchers to contribute to the creation of large EEG database that could be assessed to inform and standardize norms of neurological function and related mental health outcomes. The need for more direct application of such neuroscientific research and the development of clinical practices and the treatment of mental illness has been established. Given these identified gaps in the research and the treatment of mental health conditions and their associated brain wave manifestations, a melding of neuropsychological, psychosocial, and biomedical streams of research are necessary to produce methods of jointly assessing biological and psychosocial measures, tailoring interventions in a patient-centered approach. So let's look at the graph, right? Pulling this all the way down. So you guys can see quick little summary of the things that we just wrote, right? Summary of the psycho-neurobiological impact of the NeuroCycle program, going through it, global average of low relative power and homocysteine and psychosocial measurement. So, low beta relative power change is significant when running through the NeuroCycle app. Confirmed, positive, like neurophysiological change via corresponding lower homocysteine levels. That was what they were using, right, to measure. In psychological, by using the app, the percentage change in low beta weight power was significantly related with decreased LMM toxic stress scores. And with the app, you're showing improved psychological functioning with verified improved neuropsychological measures. The other thing, biological, decreased low beta weight power significantly related to homocysteine levels and confirmed with stimulations, decreased LMM toxic scores associated with decreased low beta weight power. Basically getting down to this, she gets down to the point of unpacking, pretty much the brain, right, in your own way by being able to, root out your thoughts and really learn about them. So we're gonna just watch this video real quick.
Life can be hard, then it's easy to feel stressed, anxious, and out of control. What if there was a way to take back control? What if there was a practical way to detox your brain? This is now possible with NeuroCycle.